one mic gives the best volume with the new system. Two mics don't necessarily make any adjustment. Thank you, member. You may proceed with your question.
I feel like a first timer. Minister, first let me commend you on the, congratulate you on the local first policy initiative. Minister, Minister, I think you'd agree with me with Negril's contribution to the overall national tourism product. But for local first to work, some things have to work first for the people in Negril, the small operators, the citizens that work within the tourism industry. And I'll go through some things here and I'd want your feedback on it. Number one, the infrastructure in Negril needs to, if it's local first, the local players in the market, they speak of the infrastructure in Negril. It needs to upgrade, it needs to look presentable, it needs to more or less look as if it's world class or other sections of Jamaica. Number two is they speak also, they speak in terms of the beautification of Negril. Minister, you can't have local first for the people of Negril if we don't deal with the bottleneck.
Member, we'll have some challenges when I am sitting in this chair as speaker.
Okay.
You are to ask a question. Your time for making a statement is only 5 minutes, and that is allowed to the person who is responding to the minister. Other than that, each person allowed in respect of questions afterwards in keeping with standing orders 11A and 17 subsection 2 must ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, could you give me an update on the following? The bottleneck in Lucy, which is preventing the hotel operators in Negril, both small and large, in terms of attracting more visitors to Negril. That's number one. Question two, the beautification of Negril. Question three, the upgrade of the infrastructure in Negril. And question four, which I'd like to ask you is, could it be that Negril could be marketed as a by itself, a standalone, to benefit the people of Negril who have suffered so long. And Minister, in terms of this local first, how does it fit with the overall strategy of those operators in Negril now who are operating and find it difficult when you speak in terms of the amount of stopovers, the amount of visitors, and Negril still not feeling the impact of the amount of visitors that is coming on our shores in Jamaica, the small operators?
Chris.
The next question is to come from the member from St. Mary Central.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I too want to congratulate Minister Bartlett. I think a policy to grow the numbers by putting Jamaica first, or a local first policy, is something that we all would commend. I have two questions, Minister Bartlett. And the context for the question is the statement speaks to the evolution of our global marketing strategy. And I want to know if a part of this evolution will involve the engagement of creatives so that the unique stories within Jamaica and places like Central St. Mary, which isn't a large part of the tourism product, but these stories are saleable. Whether the strategy will include engaging creatives to ensure that a more diverse product is a part of this new direction. The second question relates to the projected growth rate. I'm seeing that you're projecting a growth of 2.7% for 2024. I noticed for 2025, I note that for 2024, the growth rate in the Caribbean based on CTO was 6.1%. And I want to know what accounts for such a major difference in terms of what Jamaica is projecting this year and what the Caribbean's growth rate was last year. Thanks.
I am wondering if the minister would like to respond to the set of questions. No?
Feel like okay. Can you free up everybody just turn on? Turn up your own and turn down.
The member from Westmoreland Central. You just turned your mic off? I just turned it on. You turned it off. All right, everyone, you can turn your mic off, with the exception of Minister Bartlett. Minister, you may go ahead and respond.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As is indicated, it's a learning process. So, Madam Speaker, the first question from the opposition leader, the first two questions. The difference there in the numbers is really the difference between fiscal year and calendar year. So the calendar year was indicated there, and the fiscal will make the 5 by 5 by 5, which is to the 31st of August. You can look out for it. The second question, of course, has to do with the method. Yes. Madam Speaker, we deliberately avoided that element in this preliminary part of the presentation, simply because we're allowing for the consultation that will be wide, and based on what comes back from the consultation, it will give us a sense as to whether the buy-in is sufficiently deep and strong to enable moral suasion and the market to have its way, or in fact, we would need to engage, whether fiscal and legislative or regulatory arrangements to be brought in. So, Madam Speaker, the member's question is well placed, and we do consider that, but in a free market situation, we rather like to make the market take its course, but more importantly, to have moral suasion as the driving force rather than hard legislation. The next set of questions from the member from Western Westmoreland. Everything that he actually says is embodied in the concept of local first, and I indicated how we have been working with some of the small players. We do recognize we do recognize, we're coming to that, please. Member from South Manchester, we're dealing with the bottleneck in Lucy. Yeah. But we wanted to first of all deal with what we know impacts him, and to indicate to him further that this morning we established a small team that will go to Negril on the 22nd to engage the stakeholders and the concerns that have been raised over the last few days, because we are conscious of the fact that there are areas that needs to be dealt with in Negril. No question about that at all, and we certainly will. The issue of the bottleneck in Lucy is a concern, and the Prime Minister has indicated already the plans for us to have the bypass road established, and that will take us straight, in fact, from the perimeter road that we're doing in Montego, straight across the hills into Negril. And not only will we be dealing with that, but we will be changing the whole landscape within that area, and to enable a stronger tourism product presence from Hopewell straight back to Lucy. May it please you, Madam Speaker, in that regard. The final set of questions came about with regards to the CTO growth, as they indicated, 24. Just to indicate to you that the period of that level of growth for Jamaica went immediately after COVID, and we were the leaders. We carried the Caribbean in terms of growth rate throughout the period. So as you grow and you get back to your pre-COVID numbers, the increment of growth will be lower, so that Jamaica's 2.7%, which is for 25, not 24, right, is well ahead, because our 2.7%, for example, is on a volume that is higher than everybody else in the Caribbean except Dumrep and Mexico. So all the rest of the Caribbean combined, the English-speaking Caribbean combined, their volume doesn't match Jamaica. So when we make 2.7, we probably have an increase in numerical terms that is higher than probably the total output for one of the islands. And I say that with a lot of humility, and not to in any way, demean what happens elsewhere. So just for the member to appreciate that. And the issue of the creatives, yes, that's at the heart of local first. The issue of storytelling, that's what makes us. We're big on that. And we want to spend more time for that storytelling capability that exists, especially in the deep rural, where the griots of the deep rural, as you know, who themselves are not as literate as some, but they have oral tradition, and they can tell their stories, that we get an opportunity with the Ministry of Culture to have these creatives become part of the product in rural Jamaica.
Minister, there is a question of clarification from the member from St. Mary Central.
Point out that the growth I spoke to was 6.1%, 23 to 24, but 6.9% from the 2019 base numbers. So it wasn't a matter of a jump due to COVID. Yes.
I think it's important, member, because what you're talking about here is the aggregate of the whole region, which includes Jamaica's growth. So that growth number I did not indicate to you. We only spoke, just to get it right, the aggregate from CTO is the combination of all the 28 of us together, and then an average is taken. So within that space, Jamaica very well would have led the whole area, but there are other areas that had minus, and others that have, and averages are affected by extremes, yes? So we may be this high, but we had others that are that low. So when you put them all together, the average was 6.1. May it please the Madam Speaker.
Members, the mic system actually does not facilitate what you're attempting to do, which is why I'd ask all the members to leave their mics off. But somehow members aren't following the instructions, and therefore I will work with the mic system because it doesn't make sense to spend the day speaking about the mic. So I ask members to turn their mics off to allow for us to move from person to person without having to go through this process again. And it also allows for clarification or follow-up in terms of supplementary of a member who asked a question and is not satisfied and need further clarification of their original question asked. So we go again. No, the member wanted to. So member, for further clarification.
Sorry, Madam Speaker, just in terms of the maths of it, if we make up the majority of the region, then our average should and would be higher than the region if the negatives would have been what would have. So the region's average is 6.1%. It means we are pulling down the average if ours is so much lower than the averages in terms of the maths of it. I'm not clear.
Madam Speaker, the member is not taking into account what I said, that our growth, as I indicated to you, for 2025 is not in that 6.1 you talk about. We have not indicated to you here what the growth was in 24 or 23. But just to let you know for the records, Jamaica's growth since COVID has been phenomenal. And so, you know, we have helped the region to grow and to become fastest growing region on earth, the Caribbean. So just to let you know. So that finally, just to make the point to you, that the rate of growth for Jamaica at this point in time is not as material as to the volume of growth, because the number of more people who come to Jamaica in any given year is higher than the total of what goes to some countries in the region. I just want that point to be made clear.
First person up would be the member from Westmoreland Eastern.
General. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, in your statement, you made mention of $1 billion being of agricultural produce being supplied. But if we look at it in context, the food import bill for the country moved from $800 million in 2016 to $1.6 billion. And Statin says that about 60% of that import bill goes to the tourism industry. So the $1 billion really represents 0.65% of what we are spending through the tourism industry. So the question is really about what additional linkages are being formed between tourism and agriculture to ensure that a larger share of the needs of the hotel can be supplied by the local farmers.
Southeast. A member from Southeast St. Anne.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Minister. I have two very specific questions, one more global and the other more local. The new markets that you spoke about, and you made specific reference of Latin America and also Asia, but not mention of Africa. Can the minister tell the House what steps are being taken to improve airlift from Africa, given the growing population as well as increased disposable income that we know is the case in African societies? The second question, Madam Speaker, relates to the local first model, which we welcome, as you've heard. However, it seems to be premised on the same model of resort-based, inclusive approach. And so, would you please tell the House how this model will engage local communities more to ensure that we have an approach to tourism that is community-oriented, community-based, consistent with the point you made about the storytelling and reflecting our culture and so on, but also sustainable, given that we know the resort-based approach does take a toll, a heavy toll on the environment. Thank you.
Next, the member from Hanover Western.
If it so pleases you, Madam Speaker. Minister, I must commend you on a really good presentation. I quite like the idea of local first. And I quote from you, transport operators must have the first opportunity to provide transport to hotels. My question to you, independent transport operators such as JUTA, JU, JCAL, and others, they have been complaining about the high fees that are being charged by the large players in the industry. What is being done to address such those issues? Also, as it relates, my next question relates to the entertainment packages that are being offered by some of these large players, again, local first. I welcome the idea of an entertainment academy, but what measures will be in place to ensure that some of the hotels utilize the services of persons coming from the entertainment academy, as well as even currently some of the employees as it relates to providing entertainment in the hotels? And also, what marketing support is being offered to smaller hotels within the space, especially Negril? I must also say that I'm happy to hear that there are plans as it relates to the Lucy, the bypass in Lucy. I'm sure that will add to the tourism product. I'm, however, hopeful that that will be done if there's a timeline with respect to that bypass.
Last question comes from the member from Westmoreland Central. Would you be so kind?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Two quick questions for the Minister. Just to expound a bit from what the member from Eastern Westmoreland said. The Alex program that you mentioned, the linkages program, you mentioned that 2 billion has been circulated. The real question is how many farmers have actually benefited from this program so far. I haven't really, I know it's a linkages program, so farmers would be creating the produce to be used within this program. So I'm asking if we have that information to see specifically how it has benefited the farmers of this country. And secondly, I haven't heard anything mentioned in the local first about sports tourism. And in the context of the Jamaica match later, sports brings a lot of people to Jamaica. And what I'm asking if we have incorporated this in the local first, because we have a lot of facilities across Jamaica that would need to invest in order to really improve the level of tourism that comes from sports. I'm asking if that has been included in the program.
No, I have a question I wanted to ask.
Your mic is on. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Minister, I want to join those on this side who have indicated the importance of the local first, which is very important to many of us and our local communities. And the question I want to ask you really is around when you say that you're expecting this to spur development and to bring different sectors in. The sector that comes to mind that I want to ask you about is the fishers and how, and I say that not just because I have a constituency where we do have fishers, but today I was listening to some fishers from St. Anne speaking about the problem that they have. And the question to you, Minister, is how will the government of Jamaica protect our fishers out at sea as they go to earn a livelihood with the questions that now abound, where some of them are taken off their vessels are destroyed, and where there is no discussion about compensation and about securing their livelihood?
Thank you very much, members, for this very wide field of questions. And it is good because it does make the point that tourism is of some real importance to all of you in the same way that we feel the passion and the urge to ensure that the industry benefits everybody. And I'm very heartened by the response in relation to the strategy of Jamaica of local first, and I'm driven by all the questions that have been put. And I want to just, Mr. Speaker, lump my answers within that frame for all the questions local first, because local first is intended to speak to all those factors that you have raised. And that is what it is about. And this is why the consultation is going to be so wide. Minister Hamilton has been charged to get that team going starting next week, and we'll be on the road consulting. So the JCAL Juta, Maxi, local transportation. In fact, if Mr. Speaker, I am to take a little tail out of school, they played a big role in driving this strategy that we're talking about, the local transportation and our local tour operators. So I just wanted that point to sink in, that yes, we are very concerned about that and the inequities within that system, and we are going to deal with it. I said so at Sam Sharp Square, if you remember, that yes, we are going to do. No, you see how quickly he protests? Thou dost protest too much. Mr. Speaker, the question from the member from Westmoreland Eastern concerning the Alex platform. That's a very important question, and I'm happy to respond to it because it changes the game in terms of how small players, I'm talking about 2 acre, 2.5 acre member from Southeast St. Elizabeth, and 3 acre little farmers now have access using technology that they can go on their phone and speak to the purveyors in the hotel and make the deal sell right there at the farm and collect their money. So this is very important. And no foreign entity is in that stream. It's all local small farmers. We're not talking about, so when you talk about the 60% of the import, yes, that is true because 60% of the consumption of food are for local as well is imported because we don't produce rice here in that quantity. We don't produce flour here, and a lot of the meats and the wines and all of those things that they do. So yes, but If we keep 40% at the level that I am moving, and you get to 8 million visitors, and 40% of the consumption is local, we're good. Do the math. So now, getting there is what we are about. And that's about building capacity of our local producers to scale up. And a lot of the discussion that is going to happen will be with the bankers and the financiers. A lot of that discussion that is going to take place is with the bigger farmers who can scale up and who will use technology to have greater levels of production, with manufacturers and so on. So this is a whole new ball game that we are introducing. You heard me talk about it. The member from Western St. Andrew is aware of how long and hard we talk about the supply logistics center that we want to develop for tourism. That's all part of it, to make sure that more and more of our local people have the capacity to supply against the industry. The last response, of course, the member from Southwest St. Andrew, a little bit outside of my remit, Madam Member, but I understand the concern, and it will be taken up at the right level. May it please you, Mr. Speaker. Sports, no, but sports is part of the game. No, hold on. Minister of Sports and I have been working on this, and we have an announcement shortly to make in relation to sports tourism. So we'll see, yes, member from... You will hear a little more later on about that particular announcement that we have to make about sports tourism. Absolutely correct. Sports tourism is not necessarily enshrined in the strategies of local first, because that's huge, big, mega, but it will involve locals for sure. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
We will now have the member from St. Catherine West Central, Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, colleagues. Mr. Speaker, I take this opportunity to update this Honorable House on the current status of dengue in Jamaica, and of course, leading up to that point, the mosquitoes